Today's Best Most Country B100. We're so excited to welcome to the studio Matt Emery, a local historian, grew up here in Michiana, and gives us such incredible nuggets of history right here in town.
I'm such a local history nerd. I grew up close to Potawatomi Zoo my whole life, and so I've always been into the park and into the zoo. And so I recently did some research into how the zoo started. Well, I barely even got to the late 1800s because I found out that Potawatomi Park had a whole life prior to being a park and prior to being a zoo. Originally, a part of the Potawatomi Park was the county poor farm, was located where the zoo is at now. The county fairgrounds were located there. There was a tuberculosis camp at Potawatomi Park and Zoo, and also a tourist camp. Currently, Potawatomi Zoo and Park is in the middle of a city, landlocked in, but back then it was in the country. It was in the county. It was far enough away that that's where they could build the county poor farm for the county's poor and destitute. And the poor farm was huge. It went all the way north up to like McKinley and Ironwood area.
Whoa.
There. By the 1900s, the city leaders realized that land was a little bit more valuable as the city was growing. And also the poor farm wasn't in the best of shape. So from there, they moved the St. Joe County home out to Portage Manor. Your listeners would probably be aware recently the residents moved from there, and there's kind of a debate on what to do with that. But yeah, the county poor farm was where Potawatomi Park area is at now, and it moved out to Portage Manor after that.
I had no idea.
Yep, I didn't either, so I started diving into this.
Wow.
Then when you look at old maps of Potawatomi Park, you'll see fairgrounds, old fairgrounds. So do you guys know where Kids Kingdom, the softball field, the greenhouses are at today? That was the county fairgrounds.
What?
From
That's so weird.
1881 until the late 1800s, yeah. And there was a half-mile racetrack, a horse racetrack, because it was pre-automobile. And that racetrack was quite literally where Kids Kingdom, the softball field, is that whole south end of the park. Yeah. And that was there for about 20 years. And then in the late 1800s, it then moved. It then closed up shop there. And a few years later, it opened at Springbrook Park, which ended up being Playland Park, which is current IUSB student housing. Then I mentioned a tuberculosis camp. There was an open-air tuberculosis camp at Potawatomi Park, and it opened in 1909. And it was believed at the time, or it did work, but the open air and sunlight and nature could help patients fight the disease that killed roughly 1 in 7 Americans at this time in the late 1800s, early 1900s. These small cottages were where the zoo area is at now. So there was multiple small cottages for the patients. They had a whole staff, and it was successful. I mean, it was a well-sought-after open-air tuberculosis camp because, like I said, the location originally was in the country. It was in the county. It wasn't near all these big smokestacks of Oliver and Studebaker. It was open-air, beautiful. A lot of the newspapers described it as virgin trees and forests, like they were the original forests to the area. Again, the growth of the city butted up against this the plans for this tuberculosis camp. So there was a heated debate in 1912. I mean, the newspapers back and forth, people writing in about should we keep the camp here or should we move it? The park board didn't want it to be a permanent fixture there because they knew that it was going to be much more valuable as a park. And so from there, the park board did close it in 1912, and there was a tuberculosis facility built on Darden Road called Healthwin, and that building is still there.
Yeah,
Darden
that used
Road,
to be, wow.
That was the tuberculosis facility that was built after they were removed from Potawatomi Park. Isn't that nuts? And that's still there.
And it's still there.
But yeah, I think it's a rehabilitation facility now. So
That's
all the Potawatomi Park.
That's incredible.
And then just lastly, just for a brief moment in the early 1920s, now I learned from this, before hotels and motels, folks who were traveling needed a spot to stay at. Public parks and stuff in the cities created tourist camps where cars would just pull up and park. Potawatomi's was praised in the newspapers as one of the finest tourist camps in the country, complete with lights and water. And
wow.
So from what I can gather, it was like a campground, and it got shut down. Long-term squatters and, quote, tramps moved in. So the city said, you got to go, and closed it down. But just wrapping it up, I just, anywhere you look in our city, anywhere you go, there's so many stories that are underneath what we see. And I think it's so cool that this same piece of ground that we walk on now meant different things to different generations,
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm such a local history nerd, and I love diving into these rabbit holes.
Well, I'm so excited for you to come in so we can learn more and more
this
about
is
the
so
place
fun
we
every
call
week.
home.
Most definitely. Thank you.
Round the Bend Now and Then. You can find that on all of the social media platforms where you find your podcast and right here on The Bee. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.